right, so welcome to week 2 of online art. So we just got finished with our project with texture. And so now we're going to go back to our principles of design. And so we did a principle of design earlier with the emphasis and unity, with the collage with something standing out, but it still had to be unified and still had to make sense as a whole. So our next principle of design is going to be rhythm. Rhythm is a pattern. It creates a mood for your artwork just like it would for music. Usually in music we think of the drums creating a rhythm, and a beat pattern for, say, jazz music is really different from the beat pattern in rock and roll. In classical music, the beat is kind of hidden in complex melodies, and in pop music, the simpler the better, right? So depending on your art form, painting and drawing, architecture, fashion, landscaping, the rhythm that you choose is going to set the tone or the pattern for the style of what you are creating. So rhythm is a pattern. It is a pattern in music. It is a pattern when dancing, and it's a pattern when you are looking at things. Okay. Just so you know, I am reading this document that I have uploaded onto into Google. You should be able to access it below. It has a bunch of vocabulary here at the top, and then we're going to go through the 3 different ways to make a rhythm, and 4 different rhythms that can be made. So there are 3 easy ways that you can make this pattern of rhythm: repetition, alternation, and gradation. Rhythm usually goes hand in hand with repetition, because as soon as you repeat something, like a beat, okay, bum 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 bum, you automatically have a rhythm. Okay, you're repeating something. So in art, if you repeat a color, if you repeat a value, if you repeat line, if you repeat shapes, if you repeat textures, you're creating a visual rhythm, or a visual part of a visual style. So when it comes to colors, if you've seen artwork that's all, like shades of red or shades of orange, this has a certain tone to it versus ones that are all blue. Values, so light pastels were coming up on Easter. Okay, a piece of artwork or an outfit, or even landscaping. I know I have a cousin, and she just likes everything to bloom white. She likes white blossoms always. So she's creating sort of a value palette, and pastels are a value palette. Or if you wanted something moody and dark, you're creating repetition in whatever you're making by repeating the same values, the same lines, same texture, same shape. Okay, you're creating a rhythm when you're repeating them. Repetition is the easiest, simplest way to create a pattern of rhythm. Repetition is simple, it's reliable and comforting in its predictability, but repetition can also be a bit boring. It's a bit simple, right? Every flower is always going to be white, but you have other things to play with, like texture and fragrance and everything else. Repetition instantly helps with unity, but it can lack in emphasis. This is most true if the rhythm that you're creating is a regular and consistent and predictable pattern. We'll get into that later. So some of my examples of repeating. Oh, yay. It's working. I hate this iPad. Oh, man. Okay. Here we have this piece of artwork, 3 Flags by Jasper Johns. Okay, we are opening something up. There we are. Okay. So the repeating the flag. The American flag itself has a lot of repetitions. This is repetitions. This is an older flag. This was done obviously when there was only 48 states instead of 50. But the grid and the stars are repeating, the stripes are repeating stripes, and then you have repeating flags. So we have a lot of repeating happening here. And so it kind of creates a visual rhythm. Which way is up? That way up? Nope, I don't want more like that. I would like to go back. Thank you. So repeating things makes a pattern, makes a visual rhythm. Here is this leaf, and this leaf has its edge is kind of a repeating line, and then you have these lines of the veins, and it's all repeating. Sorry, we're having issues with my printer printing color. You have to actually be hooked up to the printer. You can't do it Wi-Fi to get color. Why? Whatever. Okay. So repetition is the first and easiest way to create a rhythm in your artwork. Another way is alternation or alternating. Alternating between opposites of elements creates an intense emphasis and pattern/rhythm. Examples of opposites of elements are complementary color scheme, black and white value, thick line versus thin line, jagged versus curly, big shapes versus small shapes, organic shapes against geometric shapes, smooth texture alternating with rough texture. I just thought of so organic shapes versus geometric shapes. I was just thinking in my head, we have this cool tree, and it's just like a beautiful pink and purple sunset, and we love our huge big oak tree, and it's just organic shapes and then warm tones on the background, if you can imagine that. And then what if you imagine a yellow orange or yellow, like a bluish green yellow, that'd be like a lime green, that stupid highlighter color that everybody likes, a kite stuck in the tree. That geometric shape in an opposite color, the geometric shape against the tree is going to stand out quite a bit, and the fact that you have you're alternating between limbs and this kite, or even multiple kites in the tree. You're alternating between an organic shape and a geometric shape. You're using opposite colors from the sunset to the kite. That's going to create quite a bit of rhythm and emphasis also. It's alternating is a very strong and intense rhythm versus repeating just the same thing. Just here's a bunch of trees, like here's trees and buildings and trees and buildings. It is a very intense visual thing, and again creating a style. Oh man, why does that gotta lock up in 5 seconds? Okay. Here is another example of alternating between black and white, this side and that side, some colored things and some not colored things, some grays. So there's a lot of different things alternating back and forth. There's still a lot of good, nice unity here, in that they're all these little archy noodles. They look like macaroni to me. But that's an example of alternating, creating a rhythm. There's definitely a rhythm here going down across these half circles and arcs between light and dark and the colors and whatnot. Okay. Third way, so repetition is predictable and alternating is intense. Somewhere between the two you have gradation. Gradation is a gradual progression of change. From one color to the next, from dark to light, from vertical to horizontal, from big to small, from sharp to round, from smooth to rough. Instead of just the same things repeated, or alternating between this and that and this and that and this and that, you kind of have a gradual change with steps between one thing to another. Here we have these polka dots, and the polka dots, they're arranged in a circle, but they go from large to small, and the dots are definitely creating a rhythm, almost looking three-dimensional. Here, this sort of kite goes from big to small. Okay, this kite also is gradually changing. Okay, so gradation or gradually changing. I've driving around seeing everybody has those lots of tiny little hearts. Okay, so you have a rhythm in just making these little hearts, but then they are changing from like big hearts to small hearts on the edges, or they're changing from going through the rainbow of color from purple all the way up to yellow and orange and yellow and whatnot. So they're changing their color, or they're changing the size so they're creating a rhythm with just having multiple hearts, but then they're also adding a layer of rhythm with size and with color, gradation changing. Okay. Put them over there. There we are. Oops, this is not. Did I have one more paragraph? Okay. So repetition, alternating, and gradation are the methods of how you make a pattern of rhythm. To use this example in, say, a choir, you can repeat. Songs usually have verses that kind of repeat. The pattern repeats over and over again, and you can just have a repeating pattern of choruses. You can have a chorus and then a verse and a chorus and a verse, or you can have like a chorus. Have a verse, and then a bridge, and then the chorus, and then you have like the extra encore choruses at the end. Where they kind of repeat it several times at the end. I don't know what that's called, but that's like a progression. That's the music is progressing through that way, versus just having straight up, just repeating verses. Because there's some songs don't have a chorus; it's just verse after verse after verse, and then some songs go verse chorus verse chorus verse chorus, and some have all these progressions and they change. Okay, so these are the three ways to make a pattern of rhythm. Okay, so yes, okay. So those are how you make it. The question is, so we have these choruses and these verses and these encores and whatnot, but what kind of music are you singing? Is your rhythm going to be a rock rhythm? Is it going to be hymns? Is it country? Is it going to be like Gregorian chants? Okay, so you have how you make it, and then you have what pattern of rhythm that you're actually going to be making. So you have a regular rhythm, flowing rhythms, progressive rhythms, and then random rhythms. Okay, so a regular rhythm is a pattern of rhythm that occurs when an element is repeated, very similar to itself, not changing a whole lot. So its repeats are almost identical. And their locations on your artwork or in your page and your landscaping, the locations are located also very predictably. A good example of this is going to be windows on a building, right? I think I have this in color on here. Okay. So this building, the windows occur at a regular interval. They are the same size. They have the same brickwork kind of going around them in a zigzag. It's creating a visual rhythm. It's very predictable. On the back side of the building it's going to be the same. They don't show the first floor. Guess what? It's probably going to be the same. Maybe one of these is going to be a door down here, but pretty much the same. Okay? This is a regular rhythm. It is very predictable. They can be arranged. That one was in a grid. Whatever you're repeating, it can also be this is again repeating in a sort of a grid. We have black versus white, so we have alternating color, but we also have this repeating cat shape, okay, over and over again. This is MC Escher. To create a reliable pattern. You know where the next black cat is going to occur, okay? So it creates a lot of sameness. If you can imagine, you can So this is kind of like a different kind of grid. You can place things in a spiral and a circle, but you should be able to predict where the next one is going to be going. If one of these cats was missing, you would notice it. If one of these cats was purple, you'd be like, oh my, or because the background is red, it'd be more like green, right? You'd have a green cat in there, because who's ever seen a green cat? I don't know. State Fair, they spray paint chickens and rabbits. Why not spray paint cats? Okay. So, to create a lot of emphasis if you were to have one of those a different color. So that is a regular rhythm. Things are very regular, almost measured. Okay? A flowing pattern of rhythm occurs when an element, its repeats or its copies, are more organic and natural in their form or in their spacing, with slight variations. Think about the alternating stripes of a tiger. No two stripes are exactly the same, and they aren't. They're organic in their form of how they're shaped and also in their spacing. So I have kind of a picture here of a tiger. So we definitely are having stripes here. They kind of change a little bit from skinny to thicker. Same thing with this pampas grass. We have very similar items. Each of these tufts at the top of the pampas grass is very similar to each other, but they aren't exactly the same. They're kind of moving in an arc, okay? But their spacing isn't something that you can exactly measure and predict where the next one is. So this is kind of an organic and flowing pattern of rhythm. The third kind is a progressive pattern. A progressive pattern of rhythm occurs when a sequence of elements changes with a progression of steps, okay? If you're using gradation, gradually changing, this is automatically kind of going to be a part of what you are doing. So here I have this picture of like railing, okay? Quit flipping around. All right. So we have this repeated element of this railing posts, okay? And as they gradually get further away, they also gradually get closer together. This is kind of like a progression. Things are stepping closer and closer together. You can have an object that is changing, like a lot of times in comic books. Something is, somebody's running at you, or somebody is jumping up, or somebody's changing from, is it Bruce Jenner who becomes Hulk? Anyway, but you have like a progression of changes that are happening. From a worm to a butterfly, you have a progression of changes, okay? You can have a progression of value or progression of colors, or see how they all kind of start sliding this way, and then just as a little change at the end, they kind of start sliding that way. So their positioning is changing, their color is changing, value is changing. Now, if they had also kind of changed, MC Escher has them where they change from, like a lizard into a butterfly or a bee. I don't know. MC Escher has a lot of those strange things like that. Where things progress, things slowly change as they move across the page, okay? So a progression rhythm. And that brings us to random. A random pattern of rhythm has elements that repeat. So you still have repeating, but they might be, they're not in any order or any particular arrangement. So Jackson Pollock with all of his splatters. Do I have a picture of that here? I don't. Jackson Pollock has splatters. Or even, do I have Boogie Woogie Nights? I don't have Boogie Woogie Nights on here in color. Oh, this is so boring in black and white. You gotta see it online. This is kind of like a white background, and you have yellow and red and blue squares. I think you've probably seen. How do we get that to focus? I don't know. Boogie Woogie Nights. So you have a repeating element of these lines, vertical and horizontal, and yellow with some red and blue squares going across it and whatnot. Things seem geometric, but there is no specific order to things. Like, you don't know, or things are not directly across from each other or vertical. They aren't progressing in any sort of way. They're just kind of randomly placed, like even the dots in this line here, are just kind of randomly placed in their spacing and whatnot. So it's organized, it's creating a visual rhythm, but at the same time it's kind of random. Same thing with Jackson Pollock and his splatters. He just uses 3 colors of paint here. This is one of his biggest and most famous ones. The colors are very evenly distributed throughout. You can kind of see these little splotches. Okay, they're very kind of evenly throughout and visually pleasing, but at the same time you can't measure their distance, and they aren't progressing in any way. They're just, the whole thing splatters. Okay. $6 million. Just kidding. I have no idea what it is, but I'm sure it is millions. Okay. Oh. Did I have a conclusion? I do. So if you look at all of these examples of rhythm, you'll notice that they have repeating in common. This repeating is what makes the pattern of rhythm. There's something repeating. Okay? The element of choice can repeat to make a pattern. When I say element of choice, you know that means color, or that means shape, or that means line, because that's what we went through first semester, is your little building blocks, right? Your ingredients. They can repeat to make a pattern, they can alternate between opposites, or they can gradually change to make a pattern of rhythm. The pattern of rhythm that is created by those 3 methods can be regular, predictably rigid, flowing and natural, gradually progressing and changing, or completely random. The pattern of rhythm that you choose as an artist will set the style for your creative works. And I'm just going to go and repeat again at the beginning here is where I have your vocabulary, and I'm just going to state it, just read them for you here real quick. Elements of art, aka the ingredients of art, color, line, value, shape, and texture. Principles of design, aka the recipe for good looking art, is emphasis, unity, rhythm, balance, space, and depth, which are kind of like the 3D-ness of something. Vocabulary, rhythm is a visual pattern. Rhythm is a visual pattern. Repetition is a way to make a pattern of rhythm using multiple of the same or similar element. Alternating is a way to make a pattern of rhythm using opposites of an element next to each other. Gradation is a way to make a pattern of rhythm by slowly or gradually changing from one element to another in sort of steps. Okay, it's steps and it's progressing. A regular rhythm is a rhythm that is predictable in its pattern. A flowing rhythm is a pattern that changes organically and is not exactly predictable. A progressive rhythm is a sequence of changes that progress in steps. A random rhythm is a pattern that is chaotic and wholly unpredictable, but still looks nice and pleasing. Okay, we'll get to that when we get to balance, on how to have random stuff still look nice. That has to do with balance. Okay, so I have a quiz. Just has a couple of questions. You can absolutely have this document open or printed out when you are taking that quick little quiz. Again, I want to say explain your answers, because a lot of the pieces of artwork I can see arguments going a couple different ways. So, yeah. And I hope you guys have a great Easter this weekend. All by yourselves with your same family. No grandparents. Oh, what a horrible Easter. But at least we still have the resurrection, and we still have hope, even if we don't have, well, I can still have candy. Anyway, God bless, and I'll see you guys next week.